Thank you for joining today's webinar. Today we're going to be talking about how poor data management is compromising the productivity and efficiency at your companies, focusing on some of the solutions and tools and ideas that people can put in place and think about that can really drive productivity forward and up, and make sure that everybody's getting the most out of the systems that they have in place. My name is Anthony Byrell. I'm the marketing manager here at EAC. I'll be kind of sitting here in the background. If you have any questions that come up during today's session, please drop them into the question queue, and I'll bring those up to Todd Liebenow at the end. Todd Liebenow is a technical account manager at EAC Product Development Solutions and general wealth of knowledge for all things PTC and ANSYS related. So it's a treat to have him on the webinar today. Todd, I'll let you go kind of move forward through the first few slides, and I'm going to deliver a brief introduction of EAC for those that may not know who we are. So EAC is a product development solutions company. Our mission is to transform the way companies design, manufacture, connect to, and service their products. Now that can really come in a million different flavors, if you will, from getting the right design tools in, or the right manufacturing collaboration tool or manufacturing planning tools, all the way through Internet of Things connectivity, remote monitoring, smart connected operations, smart connected products, through AR and service that is dynamic and up to date, and equipping remote service teams, all the way through product sunsetting, maintaining quality, capturing specs. Our goal is to provide all the tools and solutions people need to make sure that they are developing products or manufacturing products at the highest quality and the highest capacity. All right, next slide, please. EAC covers, like I said, a lot of different areas. Most of those are broken down into a few simple departments here at EAC. We provide education services. So if someone picks up software from us, we definitely encourage them to take training and mentoring so that they know how to extract the value from all the tools that they purchased. And that can come in a few different forms: remote training, on-site training, in-center training at one of our brick and mortar training centers, or actually going on-site with custom mentoring, where we'll pull together courses specific to a company's needs. We have product development consulting, really on the process side, providing things like assessments to kind of understand current state and areas of improvement. Implementation services, so getting people up and running so that they don't have to do it themselves. Our team is incredibly experienced and well-versed in implementing all of the PTC and ANSYS solutions to make sure that people can get their tools up and running without any hitches in the giddy-up, if you will. Then we are a software reseller. We are the leading partner of PTC, selling Windchill and Creo and MathCAD and ArborText and Vuforia and ThingWorks. And then we also have an engineering design and engineering services team. They are really where we started. EAC started in 1996 as a company providing kind of engineering consulting. And that persists today. We have a team of designers, engineers, developers for smart connected products and proof of concepts, all the way through simulation specialists. So if anybody needs kind of help or a little horsepower to get through a project, or someone to take on a project from start to finish, we can be there for you. And then you can see this outside ring, the blue one, which is talking about connected product consulting and technology. We've built an entire group, everyone from, in the trenches developers through strategic VPs that are dedicated to mapping out how companies can best make use of the current technology that's available, and how it can benefit their business, possibly bring them into new business lines, and increase value to the customer so that they can grow and continue to thrive in the smart connected world. So I think that's my last slide, Todd. If you want to take it over, I'll let you run with the presentation and provide a little more information around how data management and poor use therein may be compromising a company's productivity.
Sure. Hey, thanks for the intro, Anthony. Good stuff telling people a little bit about who EAC is and what we do and how we do it. So we think about kind of the day in the life of an engineer, right? So you're typically tasked with designing things, whether that's the MCAD stuff, the physical things, or it might be electrical or any aspect of the product development process. One of the things that you got to do is you got to keep track of all this information. And so when you make changes, there's revisions, and you have to keep track of what you did, but not only that, but why you did it, and all the documentation that goes along with that. So in the course of doing that, there's potential for all of the things you see on the screen here. Data duplication. I don't know, a lot of different companies that I've been to over the years, they just reuse parts because it's just quick and easy to do a save as, and they figure, well, we'll deal with that problem later on. But at some point, that problem's going to come back home to roost, and we're going to have to face that and deal with these multiple different versions of the parts. What does it cost to rework a part that didn't get made correctly? It wasn't made to the right release version, or we're producing things that are no longer current and correct based on the new design. And all of these things tend to become a thumb on the wheel, if you will, slowing things down and increasing your time to market. Basically, all the negative things that you really don't want to have happen to your product development process. So the way that you keep track of all this information and manage that on a go-forward basis is important, right? And so if you stop and think about it, you could be losing up to 25% of your time doing what you do, just keeping track of all of the items. You think about the drawings and the CAD files, the different CAD systems that you're working with, and then the communication that goes back and forth between you and other people in the organization. And where are you tracking and working with all that information? It might be in a shared drive. A lot of companies that I've seen over time, they start off small. It's a small enough engineering group that they figure, oh, we'll just use the U drive or the T drive or whatever it is out on the network, and we'll just keep putting things there, and we'll just kind of manage it. Well, over time, that just becomes sort of the Wild West scenario where the last guy that saves wins, and then you're not sure which version of that part you're making or how that works. And not only that, it makes it difficult for the people that are downstream from you, people in manufacturing and the other items that are listed on the right-hand side of the screen, purchasing and quality and partners. And how are you sharing that information? First off, not everybody can see that shared drive in the network. For customer, for example, or a partner, and how are you sharing that information? Are you sending it over email? Are you sending it via an FTP server? Or how are you managing that data? And then just think about people inside the firewall of your organization. You've got manufacturing and purchasing and marketing and other people that want to access that data and share that. And again, if you're just using that shared drive as a single source of information for that, well, that might work, but then how does somebody in purchasing get access to that CAD model, right? Or how do they get access to that drawing? Maybe you'll create a PDF, but who creates that PDF, and when does that PDF get created, and how do you track that PDF to make sure that it's the right version? Right. So typically what happens is somebody's going to have to get up out of their chair or send an email or walk over to somebody's desk and say, hey, can you give me a copy of this? I need to go measure this, or I need to order material. What material do I need and how much? Right. So it's all this communication that happens back and forth, and that's a time drain, right? So how do you track and manage that information and share that information so that you can be more effective in the process of doing things? And that's just if you have one CAD system. What if you have multiple different systems that you're working with, to try and get all this data created and then shared out amongst the organization? Typically, as the screen shows, the engineer is the pinch point in this process, right? So they're the people that are creating that content, creating that information, but then they've also got to stop and turn around and share that information out such that other people can do what they need to do for their part of the process. So that's just kind of the way things are in a lot of companies. How do we actually get around that? How do we fix that? Well, again, here's this slide really kind of talks about some of the things I just listed. Greater rework, longer product development cycles, lack of version control. Right, stop me if any of this stuff sounds familiar, right? I mean, this is a typical day in the life of an engineering organization. There's a lot of these challenges that we bump into. whether that might be lost intellectual property, or how do we track the changes. We're translating data if we're sharing that with a supplier. Right now you're sending out DXF files to create flat patterns, and now things don't get made right because the bends aren't created at the right way because they use a different manufacturing process. And so it's just all kinds of inefficiencies that happen as a natural course of working in this sort of uncontrolled, unmanaged environment. So what that really means is you have less time for the things that you need to do. You're less efficient in the way that you're doing things, and that translates into less product innovation because you're kind of in a way spinning your wheels. So I think about it, what if we had a system that could actually kind of help with that process, right? If we had all that stuff in a central location and kind of managed that and controlled that and had the system kind of work for us in the process. So in this case, we have the engineer that's still creating that content and information, and we're putting it in this central product data management system, Windchill in this case, and it can manage all of this stuff, whether that's schematics or different flavors of CAD models, all of the communication and collaboration that happens, whether that might be an email or subscription or bulletin board notification kind of communication inside the system. And then people on the right-hand side of the slide, the downstream users of that information, purchasing, quality, customers, manufacturing, all the people that need to use the stuff that you're making in the design group, they can access that information in a pull type fashion. So instead of having the engineer stop what they're doing, create the DXF or whatever, and then push it out to some folder location so somebody else can see it, the downstream users of that information can pull that when they need it. They can open it up in Creo View, they can access the model, they can spin it around, they can measure it, they can do exploded views, whatever they need to do to get that information so they can process that to do their part of the job. Right, so if they need to bill of material information, they need to find parameters for material specs and all that kind of stuff, it's available, and they can pull that on an on-demand sort of basis in their system. So again, it's just sort of a slide that kind of backs up the things I was just talking about, right? So you're going to, as an organization, spend less time searching for information because you're not stopping the engineer from what they're doing, fielding requests, or maybe recreating data, creating those PDFs or other downstream viewables for somebody to look at the model, updating different things. And you're going to have, what that translates into is more time for other things that you're really tasked with doing, creating new designs, innovating the designs that you currently have, and ultimately making the engineer happier because they're spending more time doing the things that they really want to do, which is creating data, creating models, doing simulations, making a better product instead of the stuff that you have to do to sort of supply the rest of the organization with information. Sort of a little story. One of my first jobs as an engineer was as a designer engineer for a company that made agricultural and construction trailers. One of the first jobs, the first tasks they gave me was to start at the back bumper and climb all over this trailer and inventory everything that it took to make one of these things, right? So every single piece part had to be accounted for because the bill of material was notoriously incorrect and incomplete. So that was my job, right? Start at the bumper and work up to the kingpin in the front and count every single nut and bolt and piece part and gusset and rivet and everything, air hose, coupler, everything that it took to make this thing, and then make this complete bill of materials. That's not what I went to school for, right? To be a design engineer is to climb all over trailers and to do inventories and manage bills of material. That's sort of a bookkeeping kind of thing that really wasn't in my field of interest, right? I wanted to actually design the trailers and make the models, right? So, but that's reality because you have to do that in order to drive the business and to be profitable and make money, right? That's why you're there, is to make cool products and to actually make money in the process. So if we talk about a modern PDM system, here's what we need to do. Here's what we'd like it to do. We want to make it easy for engineers to manage the data, to share that data with the rest of the organization, and then review the data so people can actually consume that and do what they need to do. Because it's not just an engineer working on an island, right? You're working as part of an organization and need to share that information such that everybody else can do their part. We're all pulling on the oars together, going in the same direction, hopefully. And this is the best way to do that, is to work off of this common platform so we can manage and share and review that information. So what does that look like? Manage your data in a single view. So again, we're looking at all this different type of content, whether it's Creo data, Inventor, SolidWorks, Office applications, Word, PowerPoint, what have you, and you're going to manage that data in that one central location so that everybody can see it, assuming that they've got login privileges and can actually do that, right? So what we're doing here is we're tracking that information and we're managing it. We're tracking the right version and iteration, so it's you're working with the right data at the right time, at the right place in the organization. It's workflow driven, right? So you've got a defined process that says, hey, I'm going to actually release this from work in process to production, and there's a clearly defined process that has to go through in order to go through those states and gates to make sure that the manufacturing people are pulling the right material out of inventory and they're making the right parts at the right time. And you want to have this be simple to use, right? We want to have it be simple for the other people in the organization to find the right information at the right time. And so that's what we talk about, managing that data and having that in that central location. Then we talk about sharing that, right? So we talk about Windchill as being the central place for managing all of that. And again, it's a secure collaboration environment where it's a role-based situation where if you're in design engineering, you're going to have a certain insight into things that are in the system, as opposed to somebody who's in manufacturing. You're going to have a different view of the world because you're only going to see things that are released to manufacturing, right? So it's role-based so that you can have access to just the information that you need when you need it at the right place. And again, this can be accessed from multiple different locations, right? So it could be from a desktop, it could be on a mobile application, so you could be walking around the shop floor with a tablet and access the information there if you needed to. And again, you're going to access that through ThingWorx Navigate. And we see a little bit of an overview of what that looks like there. Again, it's sort of a lightweight app-based environment where you can view drawings or parts lists or view the document structure. So again, it's a role-based self-service pull type system where you are going to pull the information that you need when you need it. Again, it's controlled and it's secure, right? So you can invite people in as needed, like a customer or a supplier, right? They can be invited into the design project, and they can only see the things that you've allowed them to see in the system. And of course, it's managed in a concurrent design, right? So that just means everybody can work on their part of the process using the system. So then the third step, review the data. Here's what it looks like using ThingWorx Navigate. We're looking at a part structure in this case, and it's pretty easy. It's not a really heavy interface. It's it's app-based, right? So you get a nice little thumbnail view of what that object's going to look like. You can spin it around, and if you click on it we'll show you this in a demo here in a couple minutes. You click on the different line items in that part structure. It's going to highlight in the screen to show you what component it is that you're looking at. And again, you can see that on a tablet or a phone there on the right side of the screen. So it's not just something you'll use at your desktop. If you need to, it's mobile, and you can take it along with you and view that information where you need it. So it's a simplified version of that CAD document. It's accurate for measurements and whatnot, but it's just a lighter weight representation of that, so that you don't need to have a super duper laptop or something like that to view the information. So it's a lightweight version of that. And again, this can be automated, right? So when your product reaches a certain design state, you want to release it to manufacturing, it can publish that content. So again, people in marketing or purchasing or sales or manufacturing, they can access that data from wherever they need to, again, with a lightweight representation of that, just using a web browser, for example. And you'll still have access to all of the history, and if you need to make markups and do design reviews and red lines and things like that, you can do that using the viewing application, Creo View, to do that and share information back, so you can do those design reviews and problem reports and start those types of things all off the same information in the model. So again, everybody's working with the same page of the playbook as far as what's happening with the design. And this slide, silos, right? So we have in a typical organization, we have all these different silos of information. You notice there's no connection between these silos. So the ERP system, MRP system, CRM, accounting, PLM, none of these things, out of the box in a typical organization that doesn't use Windchill, they don't really talk to each other, right? So that's one of the things that Windchill can actually do, is to help you bridge these silos of information and bring them all back together so that they can communicate and share information across the silos. How do we do that? That's using ThingWorx Navigate from PTC. And specifically, we've even developed some of our own productivity apps at EAC, right? And so we've taken that to the next level and sort of customized that based on customer requests and demands as far as, hey, I'd like the system to be able to do this. Can we build that into a EAC or just a ThingWorx app? And we can do that. We've done that, right? We'll show you that here in a couple of slides. And so here's really what we're talking about is this combination of ThingWorx Navigate as a platform, and on top of that, we've built some specific productivity apps that address certain requests or needs of customers that we see in the field. And here's an example of what the different organizations that inside the company might typically use or would want to access that information. Right, so engineering is obviously creating that information. Manufacturing is going to want to consume that. Marketing is going to want to use that to make all of the cool stuff that people are going to look at, so they know which version of the product to buy and which model and all that kind of stuff. Operations is going to need to know that because they're going to want to develop the shop floor layout for new designs and get things set up so they can actually make things. So again, it's just different slices across the organization that can access that information, and then we use the productivity apps to do that. So here's a couple screenshots that show the different views of the windows, if you will, that go back into Windchill. So on the left-hand side, we have the standard view of Windchill that the engineers typically use for creating the data and vaulting the data and that kind of stuff. In the middle, we have the PTC Navigate, so that's the standard out-of-the-box ThingWorx Navigate from PTC. And then on the screen, we show some of the EAC productivity apps, right? So we've got some quick access and parts associations and different applications that we've developed to address these questions. And here they are at sort of the top level. Quick access will show you these, the BOM reports and the part associations, and more are being developed all the time. So again, typical current approach and challenges. So on the left-hand side, we have the design engineer, and they're typically using that Windchill environment, and that's okay because that's where they live. That's how they manage the data, and that's how they do their thing when they're creating the products. And then what we're going to do is show the tool designer or the other people on the right-hand side of the slide. They're going to be requesting that information, and then how do we do that, right? So in this case, we're going to use the ThingWorx Navigate apps and the EAC Productivity apps to access that information. So here's what it looks like if you use the Navigate platform. So instead of the design engineer looking at the things here that they typically do, you can integrate these other systems, whether that might be a Salesforce or SAP or some other ERP type system. All these things can be bridged together, so now everybody in the organization can access the information that they need, and they can have a specific app that does just the things that they need to do. So they don't need to see everything that's going on inside Windchill. They could just access the functionality that they need as a tool designer or a process planner or a quality inspector, whatever their role is in the organization. They can have a specific app that lets them access the information and not see everything else that they don't need to see to do what they need to do. So just kind of build out this slide. It's purpose-built, right? So again, depending upon your role in the organization, that ThingWorx app can be developed that brings together just the information that they need from all the different systems, and then it makes it easy to use in this environment, right? So it's custom built for what they want to see in the application, and they aren't overwhelmed with a bunch of other extra information that really doesn't pertain to what they're doing. So benefits, right? So there's not necessarily a requirement for Windchill or other upgrade. It's easy to deploy, right? It's basically just an application that runs in a web browser. A little bit of tailoring or configuration to get these apps to look like what you want and show the information that you want. And again, you're decreasing all of the bad things and increasing the good things. Cutting down on errors, increasing your efficiencies, making it more cost-effective to access the information. And so here's a couple of screenshots of the productivity apps for Windchill, right? We'll show you these live here in just a minute. So again, it's just the different look and feel for the different apps based on the role that the end user is going to want to see based on what they do in the organization. So Anthony, if you want to talk about this is the subscription pricing and how that all rolls out.
Yeah, I can jump into this. So one of the things we realized when we were trying to make collaboration and access to data throughout an organization easier is that a lot of the enterprise level tools that are available out there have really complicated pricing structures. So we wanted to make it dead simple. So if you have Windchill and you have other enterprise systems, and one way that you might be able to improve access to all that data is to bring them together through role-based apps like our EAC productivity apps. We wanted to remove one of the obstacles. So all of our pricing is built on 4 tiers. Well, 2 tiers, 4 levels, and it's based on numbers of users and whether you need to simply view data or if you need to view and create data. So if you decide that you like one of the apps that Todd shows you, and you want to pick it up, you're not just buying that one, you get all of them. Every EAC productivity app that we create, as when you have purchased productivity apps, and then as you have them, you'll get access to the new ones that roll out. They all roll into this pricing structure. So 1 to 25 users, 26 to 50, 51 to 100, 100 plus. Annual subscription of the prices that are shown on the right side. And with that, you get free access to EAC Productivity Home, which I briefly showed and touched on, but it's kind of our own home page that houses all the apps, is mobile responsive, and is really easy to kind of customize so that people can see just the apps that you want them to. Fair enough, Todd?
Yep.
All right.
And the moment we've all been waiting for, right, is the demonstration. So I'll go ahead and drop out of my favorite PowerPoint mode. Here we are, right? So it's a web browser in this case, and I'm basically pointing to the EAC Apps homepage, right? So in this case, we've got 4 different apps up. We've got one for quick search, quick access, the BOM reports, and part associations. Let's just drop in on the first one. We'll pick on the quick search, and of course, it's gonna show up here. Let me just go ahead and reload that page. Go and do that again here. I think I was sitting too long in it without actually doing anything. Okay, so the quick search page, right? So I've got a drop down here at the upper left-hand corner. I can go and look at a product. Okay, these are products that are already inside the Windchill system, and I'm just going to go ahead and look at the drive system. Whatever products I would have here would show up in this drop-down list. I can go ahead and do a search. In this case, we'll do a search on this particular component number, and it's going to go look across the system and find everything that matches that template, right? So I've got a part here, I've got an assembly, I've got drawings. If I go ahead and click on this, it's going to pull up some information about that for me, right? So here I've got a representation of that assembly. If I go ahead and click on other items, I can see that I've got a couple of other drawings, so I can highlight what I'm looking at. So again, I'm accessing the information that's in Windchill, but I don't have this super duper heavy complex interface, and it's going to give me the information that I need while I'm searching for that. So in this case, I found an assembly for that. If I want to, I can download the different versions of that. If I want to download an IGES version of that or a step version of that, I can just select that with the drop down. In this case, this tells me that its current lifecycle state is in work. It's at release 8.1. Here's the name of the object, and it also tells me the cost. In this center column here, we've got the drawing of that. That's the drawing of that very same assembly. I've got different representations that I can show. If I want to download that, I can do that here too. So again, we've got the cost and other version number information on that. So again, it's just whatever I'm looking at on the system. Here's a document that goes along with that. This tells me that I've currently got 990 of those in stock. So again, it's not just the Windchill system. This shows the integration between the Windchill system and other external systems like our ERP or MRP system. Tells me all of that information that I need right here in this one location. So I don't have to go to a different window with a different application, right? This is that bridge that connects the information in the silos in one location. So if we go back to the assembly, I can go ahead and click on this, and this will go ahead and fire this up. So this is going to show me what this looks like in Creo view. Take just a second here. So again, I don't have to be a CAD user to see this information. And go ahead and click on this, and it's going to go load that information up for me here. And I get to see what that engine assembly looks like. And I can kind of peel this thing apart and do whatever I need to with that as far as the different views. If I want to pick on a component, right, I can select that and it opens up the model tree. And I've got all kinds of different tools here as far as measurements and markups. And so I can do design reviews and that type of thing using this. If I click down here, right, I'm going to get different parameter information. So this is the different attributes and parameters that come across from the Windchill system, so I can get different parameters that were included in that object. So, and again, I don't have to stop the engineer and have them give me that information. I can access that all directly here from the Creo view window that's tied to the ThingWorx Navigate. So if we go back to our ThingWorx homepage, our productivity apps homepage here, we'll just do a quick little walk through a couple of the other apps. This is the standard out of the box PTC Navigate apps. So this is what you're going to get with the standard deployment of that. And then again, back to the specific EAC productivity apps, we'll click on the link for that and we'll reload those. So again, back to the quick access. What this is going to allow me to do is I'll go and look at that same object again here. We'll go back and pick on our drive system, and we'll go and pick on the end item for that. And then we have access to other information here. We can look and see. We'll go ahead and do a search on that first. Well, it'll populate the information for me here. So it's going to give me a nice little 3D image of that. If I pick on this object here, it'll go fetch that information. So here's a nice little image. I got a 3D version of that, right? I can go ahead and click on that. And I can go look at the drawing. So I've got a nice little thumbnail here. I can interact with this thing and kind of manipulate this. Again, I don't have to be a CAD guy to do this. I can see what I need and just go click on the different object and it's going to pull open that item here. So there's the belt, right? So again, we're looking at, in this case, I've got markups. If there's other related documents, let's go back to the top level. So I have related documents here. So there might be other information that goes along with this. Maybe I've got a Word document or some other MathCAD worksheet or some other specification document that goes along with that. It's all tied together. And then if we think about our change objects, so in this case, we have problem reports or change requests or change notices that are logged against this. So I can actually click on this tab, and now I've got that information here for my change process right here in this quick access application. And if I wanted to, in the lower left-hand corner, we've got the ability to create new change items right here. So I can pick on that and say, hey, let's create a new problem report or a new change request or a new variance. And I can do that without having to go and stop an engineer or have somebody open up Windchill, fire it up, and then go create that problem report from there. I can do that right here from the productivity app.
So one point I'd like to make on that, Todd, earlier in the presentation, you were talking about how most requests for things like a change or submitting a problem report or accessing various data has to go through the engineer. And it's worth calling out that in many companies, that's not because the engineer is the only person that can do those things or access that information. It's because the systems that engineers use starting in college, as they're being trained in the disciplines that make them engineers, they're complicated. They're systems that the average person who may be working, in like Quicken or a banking software may get very overwhelmed. And what the right role-based apps allow people to do is to submit things like problem reports without having to go into the complicated system. So it's not just about people not being able to access, it's about people not wanting to or getting overwhelmed when they try to do it. And the right role-based app can really streamline the way that information is shared and entered throughout an organization.
Certainly, yeah, good point. Yep, and I didn't mean to omit that. It's just yeah.
I don't think you did. I just wanted to call it out one more time.
Sure. All right. All right. I've been talking for quite a while. I should stop and take a breath. Was there any questions that popped up along the way, Anthony? I didn't give an opportunity for that yet.
None yet, but I will use that as an opportunity to remind people that there's a question queue on the GoToWebinar control panel. And if you have any questions about the ideas that we've talked about thus far or the software that Todd's been showing, drop them in and we'll bring them up here in a few minutes.
All right. Okay, so that's what I was going to show on the quick access app. If we go back here to the top level and go back and look at the other couple of apps here, we'll just step through that. We'll go back here and we'll pick on the next one. We'll pick on the bomb reports just to kind of show what that looks like. So again, same thing, we'll keep picking on our favorite part here. So I'll pick on the end item for that and we'll do a search. Okay, on this slide, it's gonna, or this, not a slide, rather, it's a live page, right? So what we're looking at is a specific item, right? So the end item is something that we would consider putting in a box or shrink wrapping and delivering to the customer, right? So we picked one of those, and now we can actually look and see this is a BOM report that tells me down here at the bottom the current status for all of those items, right? So the stuff that's blue is in work, and the stuff that's in green has been released. If I go ahead and click on that little pie slice wedge, it's going to narrow down the selection. So now I can actually see these are the items I don't have to filter through that whole list or whatever. I can have the system do that for me. Now, these are the 3 items that are at that particular released state. Everything else is in work, right? So now it tells me the overall cost of this end item is about $2,400, but the filtered cost, the stuff that has been released, is about $975. So I can go back and reset that here and rebuild that page. And again, this is showing me the roll-up of using the easy to use application. I just push on the graph there where I want to get information. It tells me I have 50 items that are in work, and if I want to go ahead and click on that, really what we're looking at is the current state in this column. And rather than have me kind of scroll through here and find out, oh, there's one that's been released. There's 2 more, right? Here's one that's been released. The system can do that for me because we set that up to make this nice little graph that I can just click on. It's interactive, and it's going to filter that table for me, so now I can see exactly what state or what the items are that are in a certain particular state. And in this case, I've got the little drop down. I can set that to show me what state am I looking for, either state or modified, and it'll change that filter based on whatever the item is set here. So nice little way to get a bill of material information without having to go wandering around inside a very complex page to get access to that. And if we go back here to the part associations, same kind of thing here. So again, if we go back in, and I'm just going to do a search on 534, I believe that was the number. So again, here's that same assembly that we've been looking at. So again, here's a part association. So what this is doing, this is connecting the dots, if you will, between all of the things that are referenced by or describe the item that I'm looking for. So again, in this case, we're looking at this this drivetrain or this power plant with all the associated things. In this case, I've got a drawing that's tied to that. I've got another representation here. I've got a 3D model of that. So again, it just kind of shows me all of the things that are tied together, the associations between the item that I've selected. So in this case, I've got different CAD documents, but I also have describe by documents here. If I go ahead and click on this guy, it's going to go ahead and open this up. Again, I've got my view thing going on here, but that'll open up that Creo view so I can actually look at the associated Word document that's tied to that. Maybe that's a specifications document or a spreadsheet or something like that that helps me understand what's going on with that. Maybe that's where I track information for the specs for the new design. But that's all tied together here, and we're going to go ahead and just open that. So we'll go ahead and allow this, and that'll open up that. Should open up that Word document for me here.
And these role-based apps, when it seems like basic kind of documents and related objects that it's pulling up, but we've built this to pull them into one view for customers based on requests and based on things we've seen, because these various items may live in different areas in a PLM system or in an ERP system and a PLM system, and this allows people to bring things together into one view so they're not jumping around and wasting time.
Yeah, or walking around with a folder, right? A physical manila folder that has the information in it, taking it from one desk to another, or design review in the conference room, right? It's all accessible from your desktop when you need it, where you need it.
It's a dreaded red folder.
I've seen them.
I've seen them over my years also. They still exist.
Yep. So those are the things that I was going to show relative to the EAC productivity apps. Unless there's any questions or any place else you wanted to go, Anthony, that's kind of what I had. I think the last slide in the presentation here was really just this guy right here. We just do one of these, we'll show that. Of course, that's going to go the wrong way. Let's try that.
Yeah, so there aren't any questions, but I will urge people that are on, reach out to us. If your system is kind of broken up into silos right now, if there are people in accounting and people in purchasing and people in marketing and engineering and manufacturing and service, they're all working in different systems, chances are you all need to be looking at similar, if not the same, data. So instead of recreating things, rekeying things, copying and pasting, start getting people access to the live data using role-based apps like Navigate or other custom applications leveraging ThingWorx that we can build for you. And we'd love to talk to you about where data is getting stuck and getting lost within your organization and how we might be able to streamline it. Because if you can create something once and have everybody working off the same instance of information, everything goes more smoothly and is more accurate. So Todd, thank you very, very much for this presentation and demonstration. I really appreciate your time. Everyone else on the call, thank you very much for joining. Barring any